What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to be talking about driving the HPD within traffic and around traffic, things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do, and all that good sort of thing. I want to start off by saying that the HPD is perhaps the most important car in this series. If this series is going to survive and thrive, it really does come down to the HPD drivers out there. We had this series previously where everybody was all thrown into one group and everything, and participation was great. However, HPD drivers were punting GT drivers off the track with reckless abandon, and it was not a very fun place to drive a GT car. It was basically suicide. You were asking to be murdered, more or less. And because of that, the GT cars both died, and then they spun off into GT Challenge, and now they're finally back again. So if I can say one thing, it is don't screw this up. Okay? Please. Don't screw this up. Not only does it make for a more fun experience for you HPD drivers getting to drive through, the GT traffic. Also, the GT drivers, we want to have cars to race with in our own class. We don't want to have to fear about being taken out. Really, it just works better for everybody if the HPD drivers do a good job and are safe, competent, and speedy. So, anyways, let's begin. Well, I've talked a lot about this already. Let me just restate this yet again. All three cars in this series have to obey the laws of physics. Okay, no car is capable of disappearing. No car will ever vanish from you unless they blink or anything like that. As an HPD driver, you can't just simply go 9,000 miles an hour through every single corner because your car's not going to do that. And wouldn't it do that if there was no traffic? So why would it do that when there is traffic? You can't just not leave a Ford room and expect him to just be all nice and happy. Those guys have races too, and chances are if you ruin their race, they're going to do their best to ruin your race down the road. Be it maybe not giving you enough room to pass, maybe being a little bit more protective of their line. It really does start with you. That may sound like, oh, well, it's all the Ford's fault. Why can't they do anything right? Why is it always up to us HPD drivers? Well, HPD drivers, you're going to be going through the Ford field 10 times a race. You're going to be seeing those guys time after time after time after time after time, and you're going to be the one passing them, not the other way around. It is up to the faster car to make the pass. That said, a lot of drivers have this idea that because a Ford is in the slower class that they can pass in the stupidest locations possible, when the reality is the HPD is not all that much faster than the Ford GT in the middle of the corner. When you're talking about corners under 100 miles an hour, simply put, if you wouldn't pass a car in your own class there, chances are you wouldn't pass a Ford there. It really is that simple. Now let's start talking about using traffic to your advantage a little bit. Now, because this is kind of difficult to show perfectly in video form, again, I'm breaking it down the way I am, but let's just put it this way. Slow is fast. I want to use this clip here in particular that you've already seen in this series to demonstrate this. Now, if you didn't notice there by the sound of the engine, the HPD driver just basically put it in park. Why? Because there was a Ford GT. As you saw, the HPD that was in front of the HPD we were riding with there basically had to stop as he got stuck behind the Ford, because obviously at the top of the hill, both cars are going to want to drift out to the right. There's really nothing you can do about that. So rather than run the Ford GT over, the HPD driver in front basically stops. He loses all of his momentum. He kills his run down the straightaway. And had this straightaway been wider, the HPD driver that we were riding on board with would have just gone around both of them like they were tied to a post and been laughing the entire way. He gave up about a second on corner entry deliberately, and he got more than a second back in return just by simply being smarter, driving ahead of the traffic, driving smartly, driving tactically. Yes, there are tactics involved in this. Now, going back a little bit to the speeds. Now, the HPD is not that much faster in non-downforce corners, quote-unquote, than the GT cars. Yes, there's a big difference once you start getting above, 90 to 100 miles an hour. HPD is clearly superior in those corners, and more often than not will just go through there flat out than compared to a GT car, for example, which needs to brake. Think about, for example, 130R at Suzuka. Yeah, that's actually a brake zone for a GT car, not so much for an HPD. Really kind of strange. In most corners, most slower speed corners that offer good, easy passing opportunities, the HPD is not that much faster than the Ford. Because of this, a lot of drivers tend to get over-eager, overexcited, and they get into these really awkward situations. It's basically the equivalent of an awkward silence. You know, when the silence just happens in an awkward meaning, and you're just like, that's kind of weird. Can we just say something? Don't matter what, just say something. That is what happens. You'll see these situations time and time again where an HPD driver will come up really fast on a Ford driver. You know, for example, obviously the Ford being the slowest car, it's the easiest demonstration available. Not picking on the Fords or anything like that, but they'll come up really fast. They'll look to the inside like they're going to make a pass, and then they realize, I can't do this. Bail out, eject, eject, eject. And then next thing you know, both cars are kind of trying to go through the corner side by side. The Ford guy saw this HPD coming up at 9,000 miles an hour, and he's like, I can't turn in, because if I turn in, I will be yet another stat in terms of HPDs wrecking Fords. If the HPD's like, I can't go through the corner, because if I try and go through the corner, I'm not going to be able to brake, and that means I'm just going to T-bone the Ford, and everybody goes really slow through there. Suddenly, you went from losing 0.2 of a second to losing 0.8 of a second. It really does add up that quickly. In most cases, it's not that bad to follow one of the GT cars through a corner if you get into one of those situations where it is going to be a massive outbraking maneuver. It's really easy to think that the GT cars are really, really, really slow and, you need to get around them instantly, but the fact of the matter is that the GT cars aren't slow. Because these cars are built to race with each other and middle speed on the lower corners, there really isn't that much of a difference. It isn't as detrimental to your lap time as you think it is. And it's certainly not as bad as trying one of those passes and having it not work, and then you get the 0.6 of a second awkward silence where everybody's like, what's going on here? Or alternatively, running into the side of a Ford that didn't see you, or running into the side of a Ford that did see you and was like, screw you, I'm taking this corner anyways because you're a moron, and wrecking your car and having your race in there right that moment. Now think about that. If you save 0.1 of a second trying these stupid maneuvers, but you spin out once, say you spin out and it costs you 6 seconds. That's 60 times you need to save 0.1 of a second to make up that one spin. 60 times. Now chances are in that 60 times that you're doing these ultra aggressive passes to save you that 0.1 of a second, you're going to end up spinning out again and again and again. It just keeps compounding. These cars are not parked in stationary. These cars are still going around the corners at significant speed. It might look like they're stopped to an HPD, but they really aren't. You really are going quite fast through most of the corners when you're following a GT car. Now, while I previously said that being stuck behind a GT car is not that bad, it really isn't. Let me also remind you of this. If you can, why wouldn't you slow down ahead of time? That way you don't get stuck going slower in the middle of the corner, and therefore on corner exits, when you can actually slow down in advance, lose that time then and there, and then gain that time back and maintain your speed down the straightaway. You should not be close to GT cars. The closer you are, chances are the more time you are actually losing. It might seem very weird at first, but really going slower is really a lot easier and a lot quicker and a lot safer, and everybody will benefit from it. And I mean that truthfully. I don't say that as a GT driver who's sick and tired of seeing those awkward silence passes going on, but you don't need to be close. The closer you are, the slower you're going to end up having to go, because you are going to have to slow down to their speed, even though it's not all that slow, which is going to kill your speed. Slow down in advance. Really. It really will gain you a lot of time. A lot of drivers don't do this, And that's one of the biggest ways you can gain time through traffic as an HPD driver. Okay, now it's time for everything to come together, and we're going to pretty much sum everything up here in this final segment. Is there passing protocol? Is there standard, well-recognized ways to get by GT cars and no sweats, no drama, no muss, no fuss, no time loss? And the answer is actually yes, there is. Now we know one thing already that we've established pretty concrete, pretty soundly. The HPD is not faster in the middle of the corner than the other GT cars. What does this mean? It means that there are two other areas you can pass in a corner. You can pass on braking, corner entry, and you can pass on acceleration, corner exit. These are the easiest places to pass a GT car, fastest places to pass a GT car, and these are where you should be making 90% of your passes, and really the only 10% is the odd corners such as the carousel at Mid-Ohio, where it's really easy to go around the outside of a GT car because they naturally have to stick to the very tight inside for the next corner. And obviously the speed differential there is high enough that the HPD can actually make that work. Those corners are very rare. They really are just that 10%, and they'll be pretty obvious. You'll probably understand it. You'll probably notice it when all the GT drivers are sticking very close to the inside line. So anyways, corner exits. GT cars are big, heavy things, okay? They don't handle like an HPD does. They don't accelerate like an HPD does. They need more track to get through the corners, okay? Because of this, they're going to take the racing line. They're going to take that line. They need to have that space on corner exit, because if you've ever driven one of the GT cars, you realize just how impossible some corners become when you have to take a very ultra super inside aggressively tight line. And the HPD, you can basically put the car wherever. To pass a car on corner exit, all you're going to do is just simply put, go a little bit softer into the corner, take a later apex, maintain that speed on exit, and then you'll actually probably have more speed onto the straightaway than you would ordinarily. You'll give up a lot of time on corner entry, but you will gain that back at the end of the straightaway. You should not be close to a GT car when you're passing them, because A, there's no reason to, and B, you're probably just going slower anyways. They're going to go their way naturally, and you need to know that. If you're a GT driver watching this video, that's why you don't exit corners slow to the inside. You're asking to take an HPD up the tailpipe, okay? This is the easiest place to pass. It's where probably the majority of your passes will be made, is on corner exit going up the inside. It is the easiest place to pass. It is where GT drivers are expecting you to pass. That is where you should be passing, okay? Should not be passing on the outside on corner exit, because that's very dangerous. Now let's talk a little bit about corner entry here quickly. Given that the HPD weighs 600 pounds less than the GT cars, it's going to stop in a hurry comparatively. Because it has downforce compared to the GT cars, it might not even need to brake at all through some of the corners. What does this mean? That you kind of get really big speed differentials really quickly when it comes to braking. This means that's a great place to close up a gap, great place to go up the inside, and actually, very often, you can beat a GT car to the corner safely. Now, what does that mean, safely? It's very easy to chuck an HPD up the inside when really it's a very bad move, very risky, very unsafe. These are typically called dive bombs. Now, what is a dive bomb? It's basically stealing the line away from someone else, be it a car in your own class or a car in a different class. It's all the same. It is basically stealing the line when the other guy has committed to the corner turn-in. Once he's turned his wheels into the corner, that's a dive bomb. And that's a very dangerous move, very unsavory move, and really GT drivers absolutely hate when people do that. And you'll earn a reputation, and you don't want that. So you have to be careful of the fact that you can't make that pass too late. Again, it's also really dangerous. You spin out one of those times, and then suddenly you got a giant snowball effect, when really, just by slowing down in advance, you could have been much faster overall. You can't brake too late. You still have to obey the laws of physics. The Other cars aren't going to simply disappear. You're not going to be able to disappear. You're not going to be able to go around that corner at 9,000 miles an hour. You're going to have to slow down eventually. So rather than just chuck it way up the inside really late, lose all your corner exit speed, get repassed on corner exit, which is really embarrassing as an HPD driver, I must say, you just got to slow down. You know, there's a time and place to make that pass. Chances are, again, if you wouldn't pass a car in your class in that manner, you shouldn't pass a car in another class in that manner. Because, I mean, really, I'll put it this way. The most obvious example, let's take the S's at VIR. Really fast, pretty much every car is foot to the floor, uphill, cars bumping, bouncing all over curbs. Really one line and only one line. There is no way you can pass. If you're an HPD driver, why would you even attempt to pass a Ford through that section? The answer is you shouldn't. It's so mind-blowingly obvious, but yet some people don't quite understand it. By trying that pass, you get into a situation where chances are you're going to wreck. And chances are when you wreck, you're going to lose a lot of time. You're going to lose a lot more than if you just simply had a little bit of patience. You have a little bit of patience, the GT drivers will like you and they won't want to kill you. You don't have a lot of patience, they're going to run away, and then the series will be dead in a week. Please, let's go ahead and make this successful. Please have a little bit of patience. Race smartly, race cleanly, and you'll be faster because of being smarter. You really will. So, hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys have a little bit more of a perspective. Hopefully you guys are a little bit more confident in slowing down and not feeling like you are losing gobs of time, because you really aren't. So that's that. Bye.